Everyone. I'm Sarah with All Things Aging, and I have Danielle here with me as well as Bree. We're happy to have Bree with us for episode 4, Understanding Home Care. And Bree is the owner of the Eagan office
Of Synergy Home Care. So we're going to jump right in and just start with Bree. Bree, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, ladies. Thank you for inviting me. So, my name's Bree Beltran. I own Synergy Home Care of Eagan. I have 3 kids, a wonderful husband, chickens, and 2 dogs. We live here in Bloomington. A little about me professionally is that I always knew I was going to do this. So, I enacted a plan as an 18-year-old. I joined the military, learned all about military benefits. I worked for a hospice company, and then I became a death doula. I worked for a staffing agency, learned how to build staffing schedules, and then I worked for an insurance company and learned everything about disability and insurance claim payouts before we opened. That way, I worked in every part of the business and really mastered it.
Awesome. So tell us, what is home care?
Oh, that's a pretty easy one. We come out to your home and we provide care for you. It's a fantastic alternative for people who have the means, the ability, and the drive to stay at home instead of making that move into a nursing home, but still need care from trained professionals.
So, like what we do, we're going right to assisted living where Bree can kind of help them out in the interim or if they want to stay at home and age in place. So, when do you think families should start considering home care?
That is a fantastic question. And it's really before you need it. There's 2 different ways to build a schedule with home care. The first one is, oh my gosh, I need help now. And that's when you call someone like me. You rely on my expertise. We train a team and send them out to you. And then there's the build the perfect team way. And that is when you know you're starting to need care. So you hire a home care company like us. We can come out, help with grocery shopping, giving you rides places, cleaning your home, maybe walking your dog, taking care of your pets. That way, when you start to need cares, you already know your team and they grow with you. And if you would decide to stay home while moving through hospice, when you get to a point where you can't advocate for yourself, you already have your caregivers that you know, trust, and have really gone through the entire process with you.
What do you feel are some of the biggest misconceptions about home care?
I think the biggest misconception about home care is that you have to be close to death to need it. People don't understand that home care, or maybe haven't been taught that home care can be little things like it's no longer safe for you to drive at night. So you hire a home care company just for that, or just to run errands. Or if you just need a little bit of care, maybe you're getting to a point where you think this is a little risky getting in and out of the shower each morning, and you just want someone there who knows what to do, who can grow with you and give you a hand just to get in and out of the shower. You can hire home care for that 1 hour every morning or that 1 hour every night just to help a little bit. You don't need to be very ill or bedbound to start with home care.
And then how do you also ensure that your caregivers are qualified to give that top echelon of care?
That is a great question that we are all over. We only hire people with experience, and the state of Minnesota does a fantastic job backgrounds, fingerprinting, making sure that they're safe before they're even coming in for that first training session. And then with Synergy Home Care of Eagan, we do a 4 hour training session with me or with my director of operations, where we sit down and really talk about why do people need home care and the different sensitivities of home care, PTSD, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and also home etiquette. When you walk into someone's home, for you, it's a job and you've clocked in, but for them, that's their living room. And so we talk about those little things like not wearing dirty shoes, not wearing the same scrubs that you wore with another client. If you borrow a cup to drink some coffee, wash that cup when you're done, little things like that. And once we've built up to that level, we then do a 4 hour training in our skills lab with our director of nursing where we learn how to do a bed bath, how to use a Hoyer lift, how to switch an incontinence bag, things like that. Before they even come into your home, they've moved our mannequin and they've moved our staff, myself and my nurse, so many times that when they come out and say, oh, this is my first time with a Hoyer lift with you, they mean with you. They've already done it so often. They're not nervous. It's old hat. And that's really helped us elevate caregivers so they know what they're doing before they get out to meet you.
That makes sense.
So I used to work for a home care agency and they would interview home care agencies. So tell me, what do they want to look for in the perfect home care agency?
Oh, absolutely. So before you even have a home care agency out into your home, some good things to really think about are what is important to you? What are your standards? Are you looking to make this affordable and kind of save some money? Are you looking to have premier staff? Are you thinking it's important if you have 24/7 care that you only have 4 caregivers in your home or that you have the highest trained caregivers? Things like that are really going to be important. And how you can go about learning with the agencies, ask them about if they have minimum hours for their shifts or if they do live ins. Some agencies require 12 hours a week, some don't require any hours a week, and you can do PRN drop ins. Ask them how they train their caregivers. Ask them what is the likelihood that someone would come out into my home that has never been a caregiver before or hasn't experienced this. And if so, what does that look like when they come out? If your caregiver coming out is brand new, is that agency going to come out and introduce you to them? And what kind of training and background do they have before them? It's also good to ask about reoccurring care teams. Some agencies can ensure that they never cancel a shift with you because they will send out new highly trained caregivers every week. Some agencies will only send the same caregivers every week. So if you have Samantha one week, you have Samantha through the end of your cares. And it's important to think about how important that is to you and how the agency can enforce that. Another one is how often do agencies answer their phone? Maybe they close at 5 p.m. for work life balance, or maybe they have the phone 24/7. It's also important to ask them how often their director of nursing will come out to meet you. If their RN is coming out every 2 weeks, is that going to cost you extra? What does that look like? Or when does the RN come out? And how often is she updating your care plan? And how do you access that? And how do your caregivers access that?
Okay.
Nice.
So it's really just understanding all of that. I mean, care is a big piece. For
Absolutely.
caregivers, we know there's such a shortage for caregivers, and I think the hiring piece is huge.
Mhm.
And to find the right person and to know families, for families to know that they have someone good and they can look forward to somebody coming in and helping and being there for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So with home care, what financial resources do home care agencies allow? Like, how do you
Yeah.
guys work with that?
That is really going to vary by the agency. Almost all agencies have a private pay option. And so that would be those funds looking at that. A lot of agencies have a contract with the VA. So if you're a veteran, you should always, always ask about what sort of benefits are you eligible for, not just your monthly payments, but also the VA might pay for home care hours if you qualify. Long-term disability, short-term disability, work comp.
Hmm.
Those are other big pieces that can come into play. And then Medicare and Medicaid, of course.
Okay.
What are some of the challenges that you feel people are facing with home care today?
Yeah, the biggest one I think is staffing. We are in a shortage. More people each month are requiring home care than people who are eligible to provide those cares. And so it's going to be a problem as we shift and move. Getting caregivers to be a full-time salaried position is where I think that's going. We're going to need people where this is their career, not just their second job. And then, of course, the second piece is reaching out in time. If you wait until the day you're being discharged from a TCU to call a home care agency about
Right.
a broken hip, that's a big thing where if you call us 6 weeks prior to getting out, you're going to get a better level of care. So being prepared, shopping ahead, I don't even think it'd be appropriate. Yeah. It wouldn't even be inappropriate to start looking at home care 6 months before you plan to start with them.
Hmm. That's a good thing because that was going to be something like when should they, and we talked about this a little bit, but when should they seek it? And you said six
Hmm.
months, and that's just really starting with maybe a shift a week and see how it
Hmm.
goes and kind of going up from there.
So, for instance, if they, let's say, have a big leg surgery or something like
Hmm.
that, the
Hmm.
next call that they should make is you and talking about what that transition looks like, ideally, of course.
Absolutely. It is pretty rare that a home care agency will charge you for a home assessment. And if we're coming out with 6 to 8 weeks lead time before you need us,
Hmm.
when we come out for that home assessment, we're not just asking you to sign paperwork so we start building your schedule. We are looking at your bathtub. And is
Hmm.
that going to work with a leg injury? Do you have steps? if you're coming home in a wheelchair, are the door frames wide enough for the wheelchair? And if we have 8 weeks, we can give you those recommendations. You have time to digest them and perhaps think about some changes. That way, when your loved one comes home in a wheelchair, you know the house is ready, the supplies are there, and maybe you've even already met the caregivers that will be coming.
Right. Okay. And then on that note, in regards to technology, how would you say technology has changed the face of home care?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It has made things so exciting, so accessible. This weekend, I actually covered a shift with a client who's in her home who has Alzheimer's, and she has a watch she wears with fall detection service. That is great. If she falls and she's alone, she has a button to push, but also we have a bed sensor on her bed. So at night, if she wakes up, she's disoriented, she doesn't know where she is, an alarm goes off to that caregiver and we know they're up. There's also cameras in every room of the house. So if that primary caregiver has to go to the bathroom, they can still see their loved one on their phone. It's just opened up so many levels of safety. And then, of course, all these new home modification devices.
That is really crazy from
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, years ago, they would have pads, like the gymnastics pads under the bed and the
Mhm.
alarms that would just sound off.
Mhm.
Nothing. I think just everything, like in a lot of assistant livings, they have that AI too.
Mhm.
I think that is crazy.
I think we're really making a shift where I would argue within the next few years, most people, if they can afford the ADL devices they need, would be able to stay in their home no matter what that home looked like until the end of their life if they preferred that, because you can outfit and modify your home as your needs grow now, which is really unique and I think new to the industry.
Yeah. So in home care, when you have those devices put in, do you guys see that as well? Or is that something that the family just watches? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so we are fairly proactive here at Synergy. When we come out for the home assessment, we're looking at your diagnoses and we're looking at what that progression might look like with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or anything. And we're really making those recommendations in advance. A lot of people, for them, a big step would be getting like an easy stand when they're having trouble getting out of bed and modifying their home. And then that might be going into a Hoyer lift. So things like that, we like to really get on the ground level and make recommendations to other people who can help with those modifications. And then we track how it's working and whether or not we would recommend another modification as you go.
Oh,
And then I was going to ask you too, what inspired you to get into this business specifically?
Yeah, a caregiving job. I don't want to be completely negative about it, but I think things have changed a lot in the industry. And when I first found myself needing to supplement my income as a young parent, I got a job as a caregiver. I went in for the interview and they said, "Could you start next week?" And I said, "Sure." And then they called me and said, "We've emailed your schedule, open it up." I had my 12 patients on there. I walked into someone's home and they said, "Okay, I need you to do my bed bath and get me out of bed." And I thought, I have never done a bed bath before. Washing another person is not like washing yourself. So immediately I knew that's something that I wanted to change about the industry. I don't want a client to ever hire a home care agency and be a guinea pig or a learning tool. I want caregivers to come out and feel prepared for what they're doing. And as time went on, that really shifted to an over prepared model. Let's be ready for the things we don't even need. That way, we're not worrying about falls and hospitalization. We're already planning for those falls before they're even happening. And for me, that was a huge thing we needed to address. And then in the military, learning that the VA has contracts with home care agencies and will actually pay for some hours for qualified veterans, that really helped solidify it for me that it would be a beautiful thing if a veteran who served in a war could call on another veteran who served in a war to be their caregiver to keep them in their home with their wife until the end of their life, if that's what they prefer, or even just if you have a hip replacement, to have another veteran come out into your home is such a beautiful thing. It really takes the clinical aspect out of it, and it's more like a friend helping you do things.
yeah. And the reason why I think we really like to have you on is because you do go into the homes, and you recognize that. And not all agencies will do that. You recognize the care they need, what things they need to get by to make things better for the family, for them. And I really like that. Talk more about you getting into the home care agency, and you were a caregiver. Talk more about, we talked a little bit about your training, but talk more about why your training is the way it is. Is it because you went there and you're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but so you want to make sure everyone's fully prepared, and that's like huge.
Yeah, it's really a beginning and ending. Coming into this as a former caregiver, I know the importance of making sure that these caregivers feel supported. There's no point working for an agency if you really feel like an independent contractor.
Right.
And then the end result, I am a veteran. My husband's been in the military for 23 years. We know we're utilizing home care, just a personal choice. We want to stay in our home through the end of our lives. And I really look at it as I'm building the agency that will be taking care of myself and my husband at the end of my life. How can I perfect that? So that's really been building up our skills lab, building up our practice. And then also a rule in my office is the office is the last stop. So when I'm going out and signing a client, I know someday if a caregiver calls in and we don't have another caregiver trained in your home, I'm covering the shift, or the staffer is covering the shift, or the nurse is covering the shift. So we're not going to be asking our caregivers to do something we wouldn't do. I have to be able to visualize how your shift should run, how your home should look to keep you safe, because I'm probably going to be on one of your shifts very soon.
Yeah. And you want to be fully prepared.
Exactly.
Yeah. What advice would you give families who are unsure about whether home care is the right choice for them?
Yeah. The biggest piece is the financial piece. If you're moving into an assisted living or a nursing home, you can then sell your home, and those are funds that you can use to pay for your care. Whereas when you're using home care, you're keeping your home. So that is a big piece. And making sure that you can really afford home care is important, because you're going from maybe an 8-to-1 staffing ratio or a 12-to-1 staffing ratio that you'd get in a facility, which will help with cost saving, to a one-on-one. You have someone who is available to you 24 hours a day. That can cost a little bit more. And so can home modifications. So that's one thing to consider. But then you're getting that one-on-one aspect. You have someone whose entire life is dedicated to helping your life. And that, I mean, it really lowers hospitalization rates, injury rates, and you have someone who's going to catch those things like dehydration, UTIs. When you're with someone 8 hours and they're your only priority, you're going to notice how often they're going to the bathroom. In a facility, that can be hard to track. If Mary Lou's going to the bathroom every hour and you have 7 other clients, that might not be something you notice if Timmy's got a head wound.
Yeah.
So those are some things to consider.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't covered today that you would like to add, or anything that you can think of in regards to home care that you think people should know?
Yeah, one thing that's really important with home care is the flexibility of schedules and the levels of support. So when you first bring in home care, you can really choose your hours. You might maybe have a grandma or a mom that gets up at 6 a.m. You could have a shift that starts at 5:30 a.m. and then you can get some sleep. The biggest thing that we've noticed when home care comes in is 3-4 months down the line, I'm talking to decision makers, I'm talking to our client's wife or our client's husband, and they're saying that an aspect they didn't realize would happen is they became the wife again. If they're taking care of their husband who has an injury for 4 or 5 years, it's really hard to sometimes not look at your husband as your task for the day. And you don't realize that. You don't unpack that until you have a caregiver in your home who's taking care of everything. So now when he comes to breakfast, he hasn't gotten a bed bath from you. You haven't changed his brief. He's just your husband that you're enjoying breakfast with. And your
Versus a
mom.
caregiver,
Yeah. Yep.
Because that's a burnout on the whole entire family.
Oh, yeah. And it's a
really
burnout
hard.
on the client too.
Yeah.
It's so hard to feel like you need your wife to help you. Whereas when you have a paid professional coming in, that's their job. It really takes the guilt off the client's plate as well.
Yeah. No, this was great. I think it was really good advice, like for home care. I mean, we refer out to home care a lot, and
Yeah.
we are happy that you were able to join us on here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. So we will end it there with Bree with Synergy, and stay tuned for our next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.